The college football playoff rankings come out Tuesday night. I'm excited. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with it. We're going to get to a bunch of different things here, and I'm going to kind of go over the top teams. And as I've always said, okay, whenever you look at these rankings and how the committee votes on it, whether it's the AP, whether it was computer, whether it was the coaches, whether it was guys on TV, nobody likes any of it. All right. I'm reading that book, Peril, about the transition from Trump to Biden. And I'm almost done with it. And there's this portion of the stimulus package that they're trying to pass. And they don't even go into that much detail about all the pieces of it. But the times they do share from sourcing on what the discussions were, I don't know how anything, like we all kind of sit there on the outside in the country and be like, oh, Congress, these guys just get in the way, and the House, the Senate, on and on. Even if you're the president, these are all just very remedial kind of topic of trying to figure out what the hell goes on. And reading any of that stuff, you're like, I don't know how anything ever happens. I don't know how anything ever happens, because as soon as you propose this bill, whether you are on the low side or the high side of what the stimulus should have been, if you wanted to just sit there and poke holes and all, you could do it all day. You could do it all day. And that's what this is. Because I may do this exercise and just throw out the tweet. I'm going to do it. I'll do it after the rankings come out Tuesday night. I'll be like, what did you have the biggest problem with? And whatever argument is being made, I guarantee you, I would say over 90% of the time, I could poke a hole in whoever's argument is arguing something against what had happened. And I'm serious, because what you're going to do is you're going to categorize. You're going to look at, all right, you know what, I'm going to use top 40 wins for my team. All right, you know what I'm going to use is top 25 wins. Well, what I'm going to use is how many wins against teams that are currently ranked. Oh, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to go how many wins against teams over 500. Like, you don't want to do it with me. You don't want to do it with me, because I've been doing it now for like 17 years, and I think we're going to do it. So let's look at least what we have right now. So Georgia's number one in everybody's. Look, they got every AP number one vote, coaches vote, and that's the way it should be. They've given up 53 points in 8 games. N'Kobe Dean, number 17, their linebacker, is one of my favorite players in the country. I love watching him. They're doing stuff statistically on defense that we haven't seen in like 30 years. They're doing some SEC defensive stuff that we haven't seen, I think, in 50 years. And they're also doing it in an era where it's not exactly defense heavy. You want to tell me their schedule isn't loaded with 2001 Rams? I will agree with you. But there comes a point where you got to just move off of that, Danny Cannell. And you have to just realize that this team statistically is doing really, really special stuff. Their depth on the front, the personnel on the front. Maybe we don't love their secondary, but they're putting it on a lot of teams here. And the weird thing about that Florida game was it was 3-0. Well, like a couple minutes to go in the first half, and then Georgia's defense ends up leading to 21 points there in 2:16 to close the first half. They're up 24-0. On the other side of the ball for Georgia, JT Daniels was cleared to practice, who was going to be better than Stetson Bennett, and Bennett played again. And Bennett wasn't exactly great in this game. And, I could give you some offensive. We know what Georgia is. They're going to run the football. They're going to throw those tight ends at you. I don't know they're going to beat you with a ton of outside guys, and it hasn't mattered. I mean, it doesn't matter. When you're giving up like 6 points a game, it doesn't matter. So they should be one, but I don't look at them saying that no one could ever possibly beat them. You just have to kind of have one of those Saturday night games where everything's just out of control. I don't know if that's going to happen against them. And I don't know what's going to happen at the quarterback stuff, because I'll look at Bennett and I've watched it and I go, all right, look, he's not one of the best guys in the country. And then you look at some of the numbers and they're actually still pretty solid, except for the fact that he's not going to have the accumulation numbers, because they don't need to. They don't need to have him out there throwing it 45 times a game. Michigan State beats Michigan. Michigan down 30-14 in the third quarter, ends up 30-30. Michigan gets a field goal. They're up 3. And then the last 3 possessions for the Wolverines, fumble where their backup was in because their starter was in the tent. So that was awful luck. Downs, and then a late interception that pretty much sealed it. So what do you do with Michigan State? They're number 5 in the AP. They have to be in the top 4 for the playoff committee. I would hope so. Their strength of record is actually number 2. So if we wanted to start looking at, who have you played and all this different stuff, we knew that the Michigan State game, even with the headline, it's not always the case for all these teams where you're going, all right, well, who have they actually played? I mean, hell, Nebraska has given both Michigan and Michigan State a game. beating Northwestern by 17 probably isn't enough, even though that goes all the way back to week 1. A one-score game against an Indiana team that hasn't won a game in the Big Ten doesn't really get you excited. But look, Michigan was 6th, and Michigan State came back and beat them. So I think they should be number 2 with the committee. I'll get to Bama. Don't worry about it. So let's stay with the top 4 teams because I have Cincinnati 4th. Their only ranked win is against number 9 Notre Dame. Notre Dame is good, not great. They figured out their running game a little bit. They're actually 8th now in the AP. When Cincinnati beat them at their place, they were 9th. Cincinnati was favored, by the way. Cincinnati was the better football team. After the Wisconsin-Notre Dame game, I was kind of off of Notre Dame altogether. And since then, they beat Virginia Tech. They housed USC last week, and they beat UNC, who's probably one of the most disappointing preseason ranked teams in the entire country. So let's play strength of record, strength of schedule here for Cincinnati. Cincinnati has a number 6 strength of record, which is one of the metrics that ESPN has up there for some of their stuff. I don't love all the ESPN FPI stuff for a couple different reasons, but you just got to go and shop around, right? Shop prices, try to figure it all out here. Because for Cincinnati, you can think, wait a minute, strength of record, 6th overall, that's amazing. Wake is somehow 5th. And that's clearly way too heavily weighted on a team being undefeated because even though congrats to Wake and a top 10 ranking, let's just review Wake's resume real quick. Old Dominion, Norfolk, Florida State, week 3. And we're going to make this point here too, because sometimes these wins and losses are about when you play the team, not who the team is at week 9. Virginia, they beat Louisville by a score, Syracuse by a field goal. They beat Army 70-56, and then they housed Duke this past week, and Duke is 0-4 in ACC play. That gets you 10th in the country. They're 8-0. I'm not complaining about it. There's no way they're the 10th best team in the country. That schedule just sort of worked out the way it did. If you look at teams behind Wake, Oklahoma State would beat them. Auburn, who I was as wrong about as anybody because Bo Nix kind of calmed down finally. Auburn would kill them. A&M would smash them. Baylor would beat them. Ole Miss would beat them. BYU would beat them. I'm not going to go as far as Iowa because I don't blueprint game there out of Wisconsin. It just finally caught up to Iowa. It finally caught up to them. That was terrible against Wisconsin. And we'll use maybe Iowa as an example here a little bit as I continue to ramble. So Cincinnati's got the strength of record number that looks really good, but Wake has one that's one slot up against them. And to me, that's irrelevant. I am really unforgiving about the group of 5 versus the power 5. There's no comparison. There's no comparison in opponent's schedule. Now, you want to tell me Cincinnati could go and hang with Michigan State? Absolutely. I might pick them. I might pick them against Michigan. Am I guilty of the name brand stuff where I'd have a harder time picking Cincinnati against Alabama? You damn right. Like, no doubt. And like I said, we'll get to Bama. So Cincinnati, depending on where you shop here, you can find a strength of schedule that's number 43, which didn't make a ton of sense. You can find a strength of schedule that has them at number 94, and you can find another one that has them at 100. Ohio State, by the way, in the same one that has Cincinnati strength of schedule at 100, Ohio State's 74th. So I'm not holding Cincinnati down because Navy ended up 27-20. Navy scored 10 straight points to close that one out. It was 14-12 this week against Tulane at the half, and that's without that Pratt quarterback for Tulane, who I do really like. So, yeah, it hasn't been as impressive the last couple of weeks. Yes, Cincinnati, it feels unfair that people want you to blow everybody out the entire time, but that's what's going to happen when you're a non-Power 5. And having said all of that, I would put them 4th in my playoff ranking as of today. Let's get back to the Big Ten, because number 22, Penn State's the only 3-loss team in the top 25. There is no question Penn State is a top 25 team. They may end up with 5 losses this year. I don't know what to do with them. And if they have 5 losses, I still think they're going to be a top 25 team. Do I think they're great? No. I think they're tough. I think they're physical. And if you watch the Saturday night game against Ohio State, the fact that they were out there swinging wildly and trying to make it happen, I have a ton of respect for them. But they may end up as this weird team that the committee will look at and say, well, what am I supposed to do with them? 4 or 5 losses? What does it really mean? That one's going to be tricky because in the moment, I always feel like Penn State's a worthy adversary. But with 5 losses, people are going to hold it against them once you start looking at, say, a Michigan State or an Ohio State the rest of the way. And by the way, if Michigan is anything close to what we want them, or at least what they think they are, then they got to at least split with. They can't lose to Penn State and Ohio State, because we're already starting to see it. Feinbaum. Harbaugh sucks because they lost the Michigan State game after being undefeated to this point. Is Harbaugh disappointing long term? What you'd expect? Sure, fine, I'll have it. But when you're a top 5 matchup going into last week, you're still kind of doing things the right way. But if Michigan is any good, you got to win one of those games. I just don't think they're going to have the juice in the receiving game to match up with what's going on with Ohio State, because Ohio State is just going to be better than almost every other team with their receivers running around. And I think that's what we kind of fell for the previous 4 weeks before a real battle with Penn State. All right. What do I do with Oklahoma? They've got one ranked win, and that's against Texas. And Texas has more double-digit blown leads. They have 3 games now they've lost with a lead entering the fourth quarter, which doesn't happen often. That's why it's a big deal. I still will think Texas is probably one of the 25 best teams, but I'm not sure what it'll mean for the resume. So I have Oklahoma out. That leaves one more. And by the way, look, I already know all the Oklahoma arguments that are going to happen. Caleb Williams, everything's different now. Oklahoma's number 4 in the AP. They're number 4 in the coaches. I would have them out because I'm not sure about the resume part of it. And I'm going to put Bama in. I would put Bama in as the 3rd team. So I got Georgia, Michigan State, Bama, and Cincinnati, Ohio State, and Oklahoma out. Here's my problem with any anti-Bama stuff. They're still good. You guys get that, right? The A&M loss on a night, if you watch the game, Calzada, who I think I talked about for a month straight this season, A&M had a night, and they also have like 5 or 6 guys that are going to be top 50 draft picks. So if you're in the room for the committee and you're looking through where Bama's at to this point, it's not excusing a loss against an unranked team. It's being realistic about who A&M was and it continues to be at the time. They were disappointing based on preseason expectations. They couldn't figure out a quarterback. They finally started to figure some stuff out, and now A&M is a tough out. It's not the team that played Mississippi State. Couldn't figure out their offense. Bama, for all their problems, 21st on defense, 10th on offense. And if you're saying, hey, we're giving Bama the benefit of the doubt, yeah, we are. We are. You want to know why? Because we do it all the time. We don't just do it with Bama. We do it with anyone who is historically good, and we still think that the team is really talented. You could say it's unfair, but it's almost impossible to do it any other way. You want to know why? Because, look, post-Tebow with Florida, we're like, man, you seen that John Brantley guy? He's going to light it up. No, we gave Florida the benefit of the doubt. Remember when Colt McCoy got hurt in the national championship game against Alabama and Gilbert came in, and we're like, man, they might be better with Gilbert. No, they weren't. We gave Texas the benefit of the doubt. Remember after Jameis won the national title with Florida State, and we're sitting there watching him going, all right, next year, how come we were holding him a higher standard? We're like, how come, what's going on with him? Like, they're winning all these close games. It seems different. Something's wrong. We talked about it every single week. They get into the playoff and they get smashed by Oregon. USC was number 1 in the preseason rankings in 2012. They ended up 7-6. We gave Clemson the benefit of the doubt because of Uiagalelei. All right, we watched him and we said, no problem. This guy's going to pick it right up. Clemson's defense is still sick. They're a coin toss every single week. So if we're going to do it for all of these other programs for a bunch of different reasons, when Bama has the best run that we've seen in the history of the game, going back to when Princeton would give itself a championship for going 1-0-1 in 2 games against Rutgers, then I think it's okay to look at Bama at 7-1 and go, all right, that one loss actually was to a talented team. It was a 3-point loss, and they'll still have plenty of chances, certainly with an improved Auburn team at the end, to solidify and the benefit of the doubt that we're actually giving them.